Every year that goes by, Cabin in the Woods ages better and better like a fine wine. Just like me. So, let's talk. Cabin in the Woods came out officially on April 13th, 2012 after many delays after the studio that originally was supposed to distribute it went bankrupt and then was picked up by Lionsgate. So this movie is directed by Drew Goddard and stars Chris Hemsworth, Richard Jenkins, Bradley Whitford, Frank Kranz, and Kristen Connolly. And this is one of the better meta horror comedies that have come out in the last 20 years, I would say. I really enjoyed this movie. I've seen it quite a few times. It has a great cast. It has a very young Chris Hemsworth. This movie actually was filmed before, even though it came out after Thor, this was filmed before Thor. So this is where Chris Hemsworth really kind of got his big break in acting. I mean, he's so young looking here. Everyone is young looking here just because this is a movie now that was filmed almost 13 years ago. It's written by both Drew Goddard and Joss Whedon of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Avengers fame. So it's got a stacked cast, a stacked writing team, a great director. Drew Goddard directed also Bad Times at the El Royale, which was one of my favorite movies of that year. Even though I haven't seen it since, I really had a lot of fun with that. He has a certain style that I really like. He's been compared to like a Quentin Tarantino knockoff, which I disagree with. I really do enjoy his work, and I'm hoping that we get another movie directed by him because we haven't gotten anything in years, and he's been mostly working on as an executive, and that's kind of disappointing because I really enjoy his work. And I really enjoy this movie. So if you haven't seen Cabin in the Woods, we're going to just spoil the hell out of it right here for you. The movie basically says that the world is ruled by ancient ones, and every year we have to sacrifice a certain amount of people to them for them to allow us to use their Earth, because this is their planet. They've gone underground and they accept a sacrifice every year. And that sacrifice is horror tropes. And the horror tropes are, you got the pot smoker, you got the whore, you got the jock, you got them all in there, and you gotta let them screw up, because that's what they do in horror movies. And once they screw up, they get killed by whatever has been chosen for them. And in this one, this year, they have been chosen to be killed by redneck zombies. Bradley Whitford and Richard Jenkins are running the office that controls everything that determines the sacrifice, and I believe that they're the two stars of this movie. Bradley Whitford and Richard Jenkins are two of the most underrated actors we have. They've been around forever. Richard Jenkins was great in The Shape of Water and as the dad in Step Brothers, and Bradley Whitford, for a certain age group, he'll always be known as Eric from Billy Madison, or for fans of The West Wing, he was on that, or more recently, he was the dad in Get Out, which he was fantastic in. So it was really cool to see him here, and Richard Jenkins. They're just having the time of their life. Like, Richard Jenkins, I forgot how good he was in this movie. He's just acting up a storm. They're clearly having the time of their lives, and that's a lot of fun. I love seeing that in movies, and I love seeing them in this, and I just love that even no matter their job is to save the world, and they're still just betting on it, they're just still in office. They do make comment like, it's like, you gotta get through the day somehow, and that makes a lot of sense. No matter what you do, you can't be serious all the time, but these guys are screwing around. They're pretty confident in themselves. Like, when Japan or all the other countries finally screw up their sacrifice, it's like, you gotta buy American. So I do like that they're just still messing around. I really enjoyed that aspect of the movie. And then our leads, because this is still works as a horror movie even without the whole meta thing, because it's basically structured just like The Evil Dead, right up to the cabin in the woods, looking very similar to the Evil Dead house, and also the fact that the shot leading up to the cabin at the very beginning when they first pull up is a low angle shot, just like in the first Evil Dead movie, so you can see that they were paying homage there to Sam Raimi's Evil Dead, and I love that about it. I also love that this movie is a love letter to horror movies, and that's the best kind of meta horror movies we can get, is that the people making the movie know horror movies. And they got the perfect people to do it. I love the main cast. They're all fun. They all work in their own aspects. But I really think that Frank Kranz actually stole the show as Marty for me as the stoner, which is really a cool aspect, that the guy who's smoking all the pot is the only one who can somehow see through all the bullshit going on. And he's picking up on all the facts that, what is going on? And, the weed is somehow giving him immunity to all the to everything that's being put in the air to make them all follow, because like they're pretty much guiding them to be killed, because they have to make the choice themselves, they say, but they're putting like certain kind of gases in the air that's going to guide them. Like Chris Hemsworth at one point gets a whiff and says, "Oh, we should split up," because that's just what they do in every horror movie, and that's what they plan on doing here. And only Marty's like, "What? Why?" And it's just because he's high on weed the whole time, and that's what actually gave him the powers to actually see through everything and have him survive to the end, which most people would think that he was the second one killed. Plus they also made it seem like he was the second one killed, so that was a little twist for him when he finally does show back up. And for all those people who don't know who Frank Kranz is, he actually directed a movie last year called Mass, which is one of the better movies from 2021, so check that out if you haven't seen it. So there's just a lot of cool stuff going on. I also really love at the end of this movie when it's revealed everything, because this movie builds up to a huge conclusion when they're in the actual building where all these horror characters are stored that eventually, when one gets chosen, the rest are still in their elevators, and you get some great shots of aliens, a psycho clown, this buzzsaw guy, just everything. If you have this is like, if this was 25 years ago this movie came out, I would be playing with the VHS player, just hitting pause on everyone, just trying to say, "Oh, look, who's there? Who's over there? And who's that in the background right there?" Like, that's what I would be doing, and I didn't do that this time, but I'm sure that many people have, so, you could definitely see some of your favorite horror characters, or at least, a generic version of them just floating around in the background, so that's really an awesome thing. So I really do think that this horror movie, or a horror comedy, or a meta horror movie, this movie works perfectly. It's a lot of fun, it's well acted, well directed, cinematography is okay. I definitely really enjoyed it, so I could definitely recommend this movie. As far as a film goes, I would probably say that The Cabin in the Woods is probably about an 8 out of 10, a solid movie and a really good time, and a love letter horror fan. So definitely check this one out if you haven't seen it. But as you guys know, one of the big things we do on this channel is talk physical media, and the reason why we're talking today is because this Cabin in the Woods 4K exclusive Steelbook just came out from Best Buy, and Best Buy has been doing this thing with their Steelbooks now where they put these awesome slip covers on them. And I really do appreciate that, because now, even with that, you can actually get all the stuff that you would get on a regular Blu-ray right on the back now, which is awesome, because, you used to not have the runtime, or I'd have to look up if it has Dolby Vision or Dolby Atmos or, DTS HD as far as sound goes, but now it's all right here on this slip cover. But it's also really cool because the actual Steelbook itself is really nice. You get Bradley Winford and Richard Jenkins right there on the bottom, like I said, stars of the movie. And an awesome back casing, and also the Blu-ray discs themselves, the 4K and the Blu-ray, because they both come in here, which sometimes a lot of these Steelbooks will only give you the 4K, so it's actually cool that they're both in here. They got kind of like a raised sticker on here, which is nice, because it's got that diamond pattern that when Chris Hemsworth flies into it, the bubble around it, it's pretty much on the edge of this. It's also right there on the Steelbook too, actually on the slipcover, so that diamond pattern is everywhere that they really lean to, and it's really nice. I think actually the packaging is what the best part of this entire collection is. Even though this is only $20 right now, if you could still get it, 4K Steelbooks are tough to come by after release. Something they're usually not sitting on the shelves, and they don't print them that much. But one thing I was disappointed to find out, this is not a new scan from Lionsgate. This is the same 2017 4K that came out, so this is an early 4K, and if I'm being honest, it really showed. This movie did not have the best visuals or the best Dolby Atmos track. I ran the Dolby Atmos track, and it really didn't impress me. At one point I was like, oh, my woofer must not be plugged in. And then on the bigger scenes, it really showed that it is still loud. The rears were definitely not that great either, so it was for an Atmos track, wasn't the best. And it's got Dolby Vision, it also has DTS HD, so it's got plenty of different options for you. And there's plenty of extras on here as well. The same are on the 4K and the Blu-ray. There's nothing new, which I believe the Blu-ray it's a very old Blu-ray. I was actually pretty shocked. I had previews on it and everything from My Bloody Valentine and Cabin Fever. I was like, why is all these previews on here? So it's just a recycled Blu-ray onto there. And I compared the Blu-ray and the 4K, and the skin tones on the Blu-ray looked a little off, but they weren't that much worse than the 4K. Both of these movies are pretty dark if you're watching on an OLED. I did a comparison between my LG C1 and my Sony 950H. I compared them, and I think it looked better on the Sony 950H because there was just times where on the 4K it just looked really dark. The HDR didn't really work on it the greatest. The Dolby Vision, same thing. I was not very impressed. I just think it's just because of the age, and we really could use a new scan of this. But if you haven't picked up the 4K, I don't know if it's still around. I'm pretty sure it's still, if it is still in print, it's pretty cheap. But if you want, this is definitely the best version to get if you don't have it yet. But I couldn't recommend it completely just because it's a 5-year-old scan and it didn't look the greatest. The audio wasn't the greatest. But if you don't have Cabin in the Woods yet, it's a great package. It'll look awesome on your shelf. This is definitely one of the better looking Steelbooks, and like I said, love the new slip covers that Best Buy is doing with their 4K Steelbooks. So if you don't have it yet, I can definitely recommend it. But if you do have it, especially if you have the 4K from a couple years ago, unless you're a huge fan and you absolutely need to have this in your collection, because I have done that, not gonna lie, I have two different copies of Terminator 2 on 4K, and that's one of the worst 4Ks just because I'm a huge fan. So don't feel too bad if you're a huge fan of this movie. Run out and grab this. It's a beautiful package just to have on your shelf. But if not, don't worry about it. Hold on to what you got. You'll be fine. And guys, as always, thank you for being a supporter of Let's Talk. And if you haven't yet, please like, share, and subscribe, and tell all your friends.